Hello and welcome back to Azure Terraformer. Today is the 8th episode, and we're going to be setting up a pipeline in Azure DevOps to run Terraform. And our goals for this pipeline is that one, it maximizes reusability, so we can use the same pipeline for lots of different Terraform projects, and we can keep down the crafting and customization to a minimum. So there's no drift, in terms of the core pipeline. We also want to maximize portability. Most pipelining tools have their own special sauce and different walled garden type elements. But I think it's important that for something that's a reusable piece of source code, you want it to perform predictably. And you want to be able to move it from one pipelining tool to another. So we're going to be very consciously leveraging kind of the lowest common denominator, i.e. bash scripting, such that this pipeline can be used on Azure DevOps, on GitHub, anywhere where you can run bash within a pipeline. So those are some of the guiding principles of what we're trying to accomplish. And So we're going to be doing a little bit of coding, a little bit of YAML, a little bit of bash, a little bit of Terraform, not too much. We're going to be setting things up in Azure DevOps. We're going to have to create a service principal in Azure. So there's going to be quite a few things we're going to have to do in order to get this going. So without further ado, let's get this started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my Terraform project. It's going to be extremely simple. And I'm just going to pop over here, and I'm going to grab like my little app from last time. I'm just going to drop that in there. And we got these things going on here. So I got my versions. This is going to all have to change. I've got my variables. I got my inputs, and I just have a resource group, and we can change this to EP8, episode 8. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with my Terraform. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a place for my pipeline code to go. And a pattern that I follow, I kind of stole this from GitHub, but GitHub, stores everything in a hidden folder called GitHub. I'm just going to create a hidden folder called Azure DevOps Pipelines. And it doesn't have to be a hidden folder. I mean, you could put it anywhere, but to kind of signify, hey, this is not really part of our solution. It's code that's intended to be used by this tool, Azure DevOps. I kind of like that pattern, so I use it. So there we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bash script called Terraform with backend. Okay, and my Terraform with backend script is basically going to run Terraform init and Terraform plan. Actually, Terraform. I'm gonna make this parameterized so that it can do whatever I want it to do. Now with init, I have to add backend parameters. So to pass in backend parameters, you use this backend config, and you put in key value pairs for the values. Now for our backend, we were, I think, originally configuring it like here. So you can kind of see what we're doing here. So basically we're going to strip this out, and we're going to pass these backend configuration parameters in as variables, right? On the command line. And I need a slash, and I need a backend config, and I need this backend config, and another one backend config, and I'll just drop those in there. the reason why we're putting these in here is so that we can swap them out using configuration. So we can get rid of all that stuff. Okay. So now, basically what we're going to do is we are going to set up environment variables, pipeline variables that we pass in these values. So we're going to pass in an environment variable with this value, backend resource group name. And as a result, we'll be able to put the backend resource group name there, and the backend storage account, we're going to go like this, and the backend storage account container name, I know it's kind of a mouthful, but it's going to go like that, and then the backend key, we're just going to swap in like that. So now, basically, I need to be able to pass in set these environment variables, and I'll be able to do that from my YAML once we get there. So I'm gonna add a couple more parameters because Terraform plan and apply can take. I definitely want to pass an auto approve. So basically, I'm putting a placeholder here for the verb, so I can run Terraform validate plan apply, and then this is going to be a second parameter so that I can add like auto approve, and this will be like a third parameter for like a var file or something like that I want to pass in optionally. So this will give me some flexibility in the YAML code that's going to ultimately call this. So I think my script, it's a very simple script, but what I like about this script is it's very flexible. I can very, very easily change my backend configuration, and I can easily change what Terraform verb, that action I want to take from my pipeline, which is ultimately going to control this thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new pipeline called Terraform plan.yaml, and with this we're going to need a trigger. We're going to need to set it to none. This is, the reason why I kind of default to this is I want to have full control over my triggers, so I don't really want to set up my triggers right now. So I'm just going to leave them blank. Now for the name, what I recommend is the build definition and then the rev r. That'll be the revision number, and then we're going to add a pool, and we're just going to specify like the VM image of an Ubuntu 2004. Let's just do 2004. Okay. And then we need to specify some jobs. So we're going to have a job. It's just going to be called Terraform, and we're going to have a timeout in minutes. Timeout in minutes 0. And we're going to have steps. And then the first step is going to be task, and it's going to be bash at 3, which is basically like in Azure DevOps, when you add tasks, you have to have one of the Azure DevOps tasks or functions. But basically, they have different tasks that allow you to do different things. Bash is really just going to let you run some bash script inside here. So with that, I'm going to have a display name. I'm going to have inputs. I'm going to have file path. I'm going to have a working directory. I'm going to have arguments. And then I'm going to set some environment variables. And the environment variables I'm going to set are the ARM client ID, which is going to be something, the ARM client secret. I'm going to set the ARM tenant ID. I'm going to set the ARM subscription ID. And then I'm going to go grab these guys. So I need the backend resource group name. I need the backend storage account name. I need the backend storage account container name. And then I need the backend key. Okay, and I think that's pretty much all that I need. Okay. And so each of these values, I'm basically going to pipe these in as pipeline variables. So I use the dollar and the open parens. And so this becomes extremely easy to set this up, because as long as the pipeline variables that I set up have the same name, then I'm good to go. And we'll just call this application name, environment name. Okay. And again, these are placeholders, and I'm concatenating these so that I can have my application name, we'll call it foo, and my environment name will be like dev or prod or stage. And so this will create a TF state that I can use that'll be specifically for foo dev, foo prod, etc. Actually, I probably don't need that. I think I just need for the back, because if I'm going to use workspaces, then I think I can just get away with the application name. So I'll just leave it as the application name. So now the arguments here, the file path is just going to be so it's going to be AzDO pipelines. This is the path to my script, Terraform with backend.sh, and then the working directory, pass that in as a value. And then the first round that I'm going to do is I'm just going to run validate. And so this is just going to do Terraform validate, and we're going to be all happy with that. And so, one thing that I forgot to do, git status. Yeah, I'm still on main, so that's not super cool. I'm going to check out a feature branch, new pipeline. That way we can work off that feature branch, and everything will be happy. Okay, so right now I have a pipeline. It's making some assumptions about some inputs that are coming from the pipeline in Azure DevOps that is not set up yet. And it's calling this script, and this script, I think the script should be good as long as all these variables are set. We should run Terraform validate, no problem, no problema. So now what I need to do is I need to go into Azure DevOps. I need to go into pipelines. I'm going to step out some variable groups. So I'm going to call this my Terraform credentials. And I need my ARM client ID, called foo. I need my ARM client secret. The tabbing, seriously. I guess it's probably faster, just foo. And the ARM subscription ID, foo. Okay. Now you might be asking, well, why wouldn't I put my backend config in there? Backend is tied to a specific region, so I tend to put backend in its own variable group, because you might have multiple backend locations. RG Terraform. What do we got here? Storage account name. I can't remember all these, so we'll just go look them up, and I'm pretty sure I know what the container name is. It's just TF state. And these aren't sensitive, but it's, and I might want to give this a name like backend, US West. That way I know that, because if I recall from that last episode, we did provision the Terraform state in US West, right? which is right here. Waiting for that to load. Gonna have problems here? Like, what's up? Let's open a new tab and kind of multitask. We'll try and go to Azure Active Directory and set up a app registration. So I already have one, but for the sake of this, I'm going to create a new app registration, and we'll call this episode 8. Terraform, Azure Terraformer. Okay. So now I have my application ID, which does not go here. It actually goes over here in my library under my Terraform credentials. So we're going to say this is the client ID. I'm definitely not going to the right place. Tenant ID. Bada bing, bada boom. Subscription. What is my subscription ID? Man, it's up. Good thing I'm multitasking here. Sheesh. Backend US West, and we got that weird name. Wonderful. Let's go check. Finally, decided to load. Terraform credentials. I'm going to drop my subscription in there, and then I'm going to go back to Azure Active Directory, find that app registration, Azure Terraformer, and I'm going to go create a client secret, and we'll call this AzDO. Sounds good. And we are going to grab that value. Don't worry, this will be deleted by the time you watch this. In fact, I'm gonna make this secret, so it's locked. I'll put a pin in this, put this in the parking lot to delete that client secret once we're done. Okay, so I have my credentials. I have my backend. I need to grant this user ID permission to my Terraform, to my subscription. So I'm going to go to the subscriptions. This is the one that took forever. Luckily we're in a much better spot. I'm going to add a role assignment. Let's go. All right, so I got my backend. So this role assignment is going to allow this service principal. We'll just make it a contributor. I don't think I need to do anything. Okay, yeah, service principal. So add members. We just look up this thing. Azure Terraformer. Yeah, there it is. And it's got that box icon to imply that it's not a human. And there we go. So now this thing has permissions to do all the things in my subscription. Wunderbar. Refresh. Role assignments. We don't need to look at that. Okay, so I've granted these credentials permissions to do the things. I've set up the backend. Okay, I have the pipeline. I need to commit this. So add pipeline and commit and push. Yes, push the remote branch. And so now in my repo, I will see this, and that's fine. I don't need to create a pull request, but I can create a new pipeline. I just have to reference the feature branch, which is not the best, but it'll work. The path, it found it for me. It was nice. So we're going to save this, and we're going to hit edit. We're going to hit hit ... and go to triggers. I've not found the easy way to get to the full editor. The only way that I found is to do the edit ... triggers, which will take you to this full, editor where you can do all these things. But the really important feature that you need is you need to be able to link variable groups, right? So I'm going to link my Terraform credentials, and you have to do them one at a time. I'm going to link my backend. I'm going to hit save. Now, this pipeline is going to provision the Terraform in this folder right here. Now, if I had multiple solutions in this repo, like I could set the working directory to be many different things, and I could basically use the same pipeline, and I could just change the working directory, and it would provision whatever I wanted it to provision, right? So there is that flex. I'm not using that flexibility right now, but that's why that flexibility is there. It may seem kind of unnecessary, but that's why it's there. So we need this working directory pipeline variable. I think it makes sense to just smash that in at the top, and we'll just call this /Terraform. Can't remember if I should have a slash, or if I should, or if there's no slash. I guess we'll find out when it tells me that the path's invalid. What else do we need? We need the application name, and I think that makes sense to put it here, and we'll just call this Mark's app. Okay. And yeah, so there we go. So now what I'm not doing any like workspace selection. So I suppose I could add that. That might be why I was thinking that I would just add like an environment name to this pipeline. So I could say dev. So if I want to do the dev deployment, so we'll call this the dev deployment. Mark's app dev. And there's better ways to do that, like using folders and things like that. And so now I've got the environment name. I'll probably have to go update this to create the backend key using environment name. So I'm bringing that back. I'm bringing environment name back, everybody. So add environment name, and let's commit and push. Okay, perfect. All right, let's rock. Let's see what this thing does. I don't think I missed anything. Of course, we're only going to run Terraform validate. So that's assuming I've got the path correct there. Not positive. I need a slash there. I think it's going to get pissed at me. So let's just do it without the slash. And I have to do it off my new pipeline branch. And all of the stuff should be there. So let's just run it. And 9 times out of 10, this will never work the first time. Hopefully for you it'll work the first time. But yeah, chances are I made some mistake and it's gonna, oh, well, okay. Mark's app dev, those are all coming in clean, nice. And the bash configuration is valid. Okay, cool. Hey, it actually works. I didn't give it a display name, so we can just call this validate. Terraform validate. Does that need to be in quotes? Probably. Display name. Nice. And let's run that again. So we get the nice display name maybe. It's loading the job. Bada bing, bada boom. There we go. We have a nice display name. Wonderful. Now let's run a Terraform plan. So I can, because this is so flexible, my little script here, I can just copy pasta this, and all I have to do is change the argument to, instead of validate, to be plan, and we're good to go. And so now I'm just going to add plan step, and I'm going to set the display name. Beautiful, beautiful. And now I'm going to rerun against that pipeline. There we go. And it turns out I would, extremely likely. Oh gosh. Awesome sauce. Other. No, don't contact me, please. Okay. Plan is happening. The backend. Let's check my backend. So in my versions, it's important that I have the backend declared, but I just don't have any of those parameters set. Because again, remember the parameters are being set in the bash script using the CLI flag or parameter or whatever backend config, which it's kind of nasty looking, but if you set it up like this, it's somewhat readable, where you have this key value pair embedded in a double quote parameter, which is, not the greatest, but what you can do. All right, so now this should be hitting the back end, and if you recall from last episode, whenever we did that, when we ran a plan, we should be able to go see that thing out in the TF state. Now, some of these are from the other day. Okay, so this is my dev, and these are from long ago. So I'm just going to delete these. Okay, so this is my new guy, and it's empty. And yeah, so now I'm going to I think the plan, so right now I need to go create and apply. So now I'm just going to replicate this pipeline, and I'm going to call this apply, and we're going to run apply, and we're going to pass in auto approve. So instead of doing a plan, we're going to run auto apply, auto approve. And there we go. Run add apply pipeline. Okay. So now, back in Azure DevOps, I'm going to change the meaning of this, and this is going to be, so this is my plan. This is my plan pipeline. So I'm going to call this plan. Okay. And I'm going to go to all my pipelines, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Mark's app. Okay. And I'm going to create a new folder called the dev environment. Okay. And you'll understand the method of my madness here in a second. I'm going to put the dev, Mark's app dev in here. Okay. And so this is going to be the plan pipeline for dev. Okay. And now in this folder, I'm going to create a new pipeline, and it's going to be, the purpose of it is going to be to run the apply. So we've got apply. and we're going to hit save, and we're going to hit edit, and we're going to hit the dot 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 and the triggers, and then we're going to rename it to apply, and then we're going to add the working directory, which is just Terraform. We're going to add the application name, Mark's app, and then the environment name, it's going to be dev, and we are going to link it to this and link it to this to give us the backend and the Terraform credentials. And we're going to set a trigger such that anytime we merge into main, we run this pipeline. So that's the plan. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to go to my repo, and I'm going to modify my branch policies, and I'm going to add a build validation step to run my plan, Terraform plan, on this repo. Automatic, required, yes. So anytime there's a push, for a pull request, we're going to run build validation, and everything's going to be happy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trigger the build validation by creating a pull request. Just a humble pull request, sir. Add my commits. Not a very good description, but you get the idea. And now my Terraform plan, which runs validate and plan on my dev environment, is going to run on this pull request, which is a kind of important thing because it's going to give me some idea of what the code changes are going to do when this code runs, right? Which is kind of an important thing. And we'll probably do another pull request just to show that the Terraform state updated and all the things. And I might add another environment just to show you guys how quickly that can be accomplished. And so yeah, so we're going to create a random string and we're going to create a resource group. Yeah, that's cool. Sounds good. Go to my pull request, let's approve this sucker, and let's move on. So let's approve and let's complete, and that will cause rebase and fast forward. That will cause the other pipeline to trigger, which is going to run the apply, which you see it just automatically happen because I set up that trigger on the apply deployment. And now this, it's not going to run, it still will run validate, but it's not going to run plan, it's going to run apply auto approve because we already know what is going to happen. We looked at it, we code reviewed it, we're happy, and we're just going to run. We're going to run it. And I've got my TF state here, so I can go check. As that happens, I can see what it's doing. It's working. This is a good thing. This is a very good thing. And should not take very long. And there you go. We're done. It ran its stuff. Let's hit refresh. We got some Terraform state in here for dev. Mark's app dev. There it is. And we got a resource group. EP6 IF96 GK. Nice. Resource groups. There it is. That's it. So now, this is the power of these pipelines, right? If I run this pipeline again, having made I'm just going to manually run this apply. I've made no changes to my code. None. I'm going to just run it against main. And Terraform apply is going to run. Terraform apply is going to see that there's no changes, nothing happened to my environment, and we're all good. And it's going to go out and it's going to do nothing. It's going to check. It's going to the backend. It's getting the state file from backend. It's talking to Azure, and seeing what's out there, seeing if the things that are in state are out there, and it sees that everything that's in state is out there and everything, like all the configuration matches, so it's good to go. So now what I'm going to do, git status, git checkout main. Okay, just so you see, apply complete, 0 added, 0 changed, 0 destroyed. Wonderful. So we're going to do git fetch all. I'm going to do a git pull, git checkout main. Okay. So now I'm on main. Now I'm going to do a git checkout b feature. Let's add a storage account. Okay, so we're just going to add a storage account. So I'm going to go grab my first sample where we put a storage account, and I'm just going to drop a storage account in here, and I have the random string there, no problem. Okay, so now I'm going to commit this code, add storage account, commit and push, yes, create the remote. Now I'm going to go create a pull request and say, hey boss, let's add a storage account. I think that's a great idea. My pull request is going to run this build validation plan, and the code reviewers can go out there and they can see, okay, Mark is adding a storage account and it's going to use this funky string, and it's following the naming conventions, and we're using GRS. Do we want to use GRS? Okay, I'm kind of cool with that. Sure. Now let's go check the plan and make sure the plan is successful, and let's go see what the plan thinks that it needs to do. And it looks like the plan wants to create the storage account and all the GRS and all the things. This looks pretty normal. It's going to put it in that resource group, and because I looked at the source code, I know that this is the random string, so that's probably what the string is going to look like when this thing gets st, whatever that is. And we're going to add one thing. We're not going to destroy anything. I feel pretty good about this plan. So let's go back to the pull request, and let's go approve it, and let's go complete it, and we will watch the integration pipeline go run automatically to off the main branch, which now has merged and rebased. I think I did merge and rebase. I don't know. And now we're going to run the apply, and that is going to push. It's going to detect that there's changes, and it's going to create the storage account. And so this might take a little while. Definitely longer than, hey, nothing to do here, end. But probably not a tremendous amount of time. So the last run, the first time when we created the resource group, it took about a minute. When we did nothing, it took 41 seconds. So this time, I'm guessing it'll probably take a little bit over a minute, depending on how long it takes to create the storage account. I was feeling a bit under the weather today, but kind of coming back out of it. Hopefully it's all gone tomorrow. Anyways, we'll see. Been drinking a lot of fluids and a lot of hot water. All right, there we go. So there's our storage account. Let's go look at our resource group. And we have nothing yet. Sometimes it takes a little second for stuff to pop up, And I don't know why. Who knows such things? I know it was created. There it is. And that's it. So just to recap, we created a Terraform project that's very, very simple, just to show that we could provision something, and like the pipeline would provision it, and the pipeline would know what was out there using the Terraform state backend. We created two pipelines, one that we can use for a build validation step, which just runs a Terraform validate and a Terraform plan. And then we created another pipeline that runs a Terraform validate and a Terraform apply auto approve. And this pipeline we set up for continuous integration such that as soon as we merge into main, this will automatically push those updates out there. So this is a good way how you could implement kind of a Gitflow process where you have a pull request, for your infrastructure as code, and where you use that merge into main to actually provision and update your infrastructure, maybe do deployments into your environments. And you can, however comfortable you are, pushing out to prod or pushing out to dev, and then manually pushing out to prod. I could go for Mark's app. I could create a new folder, create another one for plan, another one for apply. And after everything's running in dev, I could manually trigger the plan in prod, see everything's happy, and then once that's done, I could manually push the apply. And basically, all I'm doing is creating this construct in Azure DevOps that reuses this YAML file that's back in source code. And the only metadata that I need that's different, if I go into this pipeline, the only thing that's different about each of these Azure DevOps pipelines, they use the same file. The only thing that changes is the values of these pipeline variables. What Terraform code do you want to provision? What application and environment do you want this to be represented for? And then these things shouldn't change. This is in the credential that you're using and the backend that you want to store state in. Now, the good reason to change these things, or if you're provisioning to a different subscription, using a different credential, if you are maintaining state separately for dev and prod environments, or based on the lifecycle of your environment, non-prod versus prod, you may have a different backend where you want to store state. These are all good reasons, but for this extremely simple scenario, I just set up one backend and one Terraform credential, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. Please like this video, and please turn on your notifications so that you can be made aware of when I publish my next video. My next video, I think I'm gonna do a little bit of work using another HashiCorp tool called Packer, which can be used in conjunction with Terraform. Packer produces virtual machine images, and then those virtual machine images can then be used when you do Terraform deployments, referencing those machine images to provision virtual machines using those machine images. So I thought I'd do some Packer basics, then we'll do kind of like what we did with Terraform. We'll build out a Packer pipeline that's going to actually run our Packer builds through a pipelining tool like Azure DevOps. So that's kind of what's coming up. All good stuff, and really hope you guys are enjoying what you're seeing, and please come back for more on Azure Terraformer. Thanks a lot. See you guys.